Uber is headed for a crash, and that's not just my opinion. Let's talk about it. Welcome everybody. This story is actually fantastic. It's so interesting, but I'm going to warn you up front that the video is probably going to seem a little disjointed because the story is really long. I'm going to read through it, I'm going to comment, and then I'm going to edit it down to just the most interesting, best pieces. So this is coming from New York Magazine, and the headline reads, "Uber is headed for a crash." Now, this is just fascinating to me because as much as the media likes to trash Uber and likes to jump on Uber news, it's kind of like, you know, a celebrity or the royal family. You know, they're fascinated with them, but yet they want to dig up dirt on them too. And that's kind of the way it is with Uber. But this is the first time I've seen a legitimate source actually call out Uber and say, hey, you know what? Maybe this company can't make a go of it after all. And not only are they saying it, but they're giving a really good analysis of why. So here's how it starts off. By steamrolling local taxi operations in cities all over the world and cultivating cheerleaders in the business press, not the popular press, the business press, and among Silicon Valley libertarians, Uber has managed to create an image of inevitability and invincibility. But the company, here, this is key, just posted another quarter of jaw-dropping losses, this time over $1 billion with a B, $1 billion, after a $4.5 billion loss in 2017. And how much is real? How much indeed? The notion that Uber, the most highly valued private company in the world, is a textbook bezel. John Kenneth Galbraith's coinage for an investment swindle where the losses have yet to be recognized is likely to come as a surprise to its many satisfied customers. Okay, satisfied customers are people that use Uber. I'm a satisfied customer when I use Uber. Why not? It's cheap, it's quick, it's fast, it gets me where I'm going. Let's read on. What has made Uber a good deal for users makes it a lousy investment proposition. You don't want this kind of story coming out right before their IPO, do you? Uber has kept that recognition at bay via minimal and inconsistent financial disclosures combined with a relentless and so far effective public relations campaign. I'm always talking about Uber's PR and how they have a super powerful, super strong, super effective PR machine. Someone else is finally acknowledging that as well. Not that other people haven't, but I'm just a small voice. This is a big voice. No ultimately successful major technology company has been as deeply unprofitable for anywhere near as long as Uber has been. After 9 years, Uber isn't within hailing distance of making money and continues to bleed more red ink than any startup in history. By contrast, Facebook and Amazon were solidly cash flow positive by their 5th year. What should be surprising is that the business press still parrots its fond hope of Uber's management that the company will go public in 2019 at a target valuation of $120 billion. They have never been valued at $122 billion before. Why now? The highest I remember was what, 92, 93 billion? And then it dropped down as low as 48 billion. So I'm wondering that myself. And Uber's managers and underwriters will no doubt hope that the great unwashed masses, hey, that's a term I use, looks past the fact that more recently, SoftBank bought out insiders at a valuation of $48 billion. What comes next is an important statement. Why should new money come in at a price more than double where executives and employees were eager to get out? Uber has never presented a case why it will ever be profitable, let alone earn an adequate return on capital. Investors are pinning their hopes on a successful IPO, which means finding greater fools in sufficient numbers. Are you ready to invest? Uber's a taxi company with an app attached. Boy, is that cutting to the chase. It bears almost no resemblance to internet superstars it claims to emulate. The app is not technically daunting and does not create a competitive barrier, as witnessed by the fact that many other players have copied it. Apps have been introduced for airlines, pizza delivery, and hundreds of other consumer services, but have never generated market share gains, much less tens of billions in corporate value. Unlike Facebook or eBay, having more Uber users does not improve the service. Oh, I think that is hitting the nail on the head. Nor, after a certain point, does adding more drivers. More drivers means more competition for available jobs, which means less utilization per driver. All of you have said that for a long time. Oversaturation, too many drivers, I don't get enough work. Now, why does it take someone like this? Suddenly they're a genius because they recognize what all of you have been saying all along? Nor does being bigger make Uber a better business. As Hubert Horan explained in his series on naked capitalism, Uber has no competitive advantage compared to traditional taxi operators. I disagree with that. They have a little competitive advantage, and that is we can contact them directly. I can look at my app, I can see where they all are, and I can hit a button and know how long it's going to take to be there. I don't get that with a taxi driver. But maybe a simple app could fix that. Why can't a company make an app? But let's go on. Size does not improve the economics of delivery of the taxi service, 85% of which are driver, vehicle, and fuel costs. We've all recognized that too, haven't we? The remaining 15% is typically overheads and profit, and Uber's own results are proof. Uber has kept bulking up, yet it has failed to show the rapid margin improvements you'd see if costs fell as operation grew. But, you may say Uber has established a large business in cities all over the world. Yes, it's easy to get a lot of traffic by selling at a discount. Uber was providing services at only roughly 74% of the costs. Oh, good Lord. So that means if you paid $7.40 for a ride, it was really costing Uber $10. How can you survive like that? As a reference point, in its worst 4 quarters, not just last year, in its worst 4 quarters ever, Amazon lost $1.4 billion on $2.8 billion in sales. So that's half, right? For a negative margin of 50%. Amazon reacted by firing over 15% of its workers. What's Uber doing? They're going after more drivers. Uber defenders might argue, but that's a big improvement from 2015, when revenues only covered 43% of costs. Hey, we used to be a lot worse. But if that's the best argument you can have, you're a company in trouble. The reduction in how much Uber spends to get each average dollar of revenue didn't come from improved efficiency, but was due almost entirely to cutting driver pay. Cutting driver pay. Cutting driver pay. The way that they are artificially looking like they're improving is just by cutting our pay. The transportation company appears to have hit the limit on how much it could squeeze drivers since churn has increased. Has it hit the limit? A lot of you have been saying that, and yet people keep signing up. Uber has raised an unprecedented $20 billion in investor funding. 2,600 times more than Amazon's pre-IPO funding. This has allowed Uber to undercut traditional local cab companies, whose fares have to cover all costs, as well as have more cars chasing rides than unsubsidized operators can. Now, this next paragraph is really important. If Uber were to drive all competitors out of business in a local market, then jack up prices, customers would cut back use. But more important, since barriers to entry in the taxi business are low, and Uber lower them further by breaking local regulations, new players would come in under Uber's new price umbrella. So Uber would have to drop its prices to meet those entrants or lose business. It's what they've been doing all along. They've been undercutting, but that undercutting comes at a cost. They're losing billions and billions and billions of dollars. Moreover, Uber is a high-cost provider. A fleet manager at a medium-scale yellow cab company can buy, maintain, and insure vehicles more efficiently than individual Uber drivers. In addition, transportation companies maintain tight central control over both total available capacity, vehicles and labor, and how that capacity is scheduled. Uber takes the polar opposite approach. It has no assets, and while it can offer incentives, it cannot control or schedule capacity. Now, this is my comment here. Once it tries to start scheduling, it can no longer claim we're independent contractors. That's the big thing. We can go to work whenever we please. So that's what it's saying is one of the downfalls. The only advantage Uber may have achieved is taking advantage of its drivers' lack of financial acumen, that they don't understand the full cost of using their cars and thus are giving Uber a bargain. I used to disagree with that, but as I alluded to in some of my recent videos, my recent live stream, the more and more they take away, the more I have to agree with that. It's getting harder and harder and harder to cover expenses. And I'm not just talking about fuel. I'm talking about fuel, insurance, wear and tear on vehicles, maintenance, insurance, plus pay ourselves some money. Uber also has higher overhead costs, vastly better paid employees in prime office space, engaged in activities that a local cab company either rarely or never has to handle, like driver recruitment. Uber has recruitment centers, right? Public relations, advertising, litigation, airfare, and the cost of running a global operation, not to mention all they're putting into self-driving cars, Uber Elevator, Uber Air, whatever they're calling it this week, Uber Grocery Store. How many times have they changed the Uber truck? Uber everything, Uber bicycles they have now. By the way, I just read a story recently about Uber Walk. Someone made a joke about it. Now they're doing that with walking to deliver your food, but that's subject for another video. Now listen to this. This is going to interest drivers. Through 2015, 80% of fares went to drivers. In early years, Uber gave drivers high payouts to attract good drivers and also offered driver incentives to buy cars. Remember that? Buy and rent. Uber cut that to as low as 68%, then partially reversed it as driver turnover became acute to its current roughly 70% level. I don't think it is 70% because they've been manipulating. We don't really know what we're getting because they have all these different factors, all the different mathematics. They have time, they have miles, they change the time, they change the miles. They're having little incentives for if we do an extra number of rides. They're now giving incentives to riders. They're having guaranteed fare. So much of it changes from day to day. I don't even know what I'm making anymore. A comment and an article about Uber's third quarter earnings. This is a quote here. I need a ride from Burbank to LAX on a Thursday morning around 5:45 a.m. I requested a car the night before. Okay, I'm going to jump in on this because I have shown, I'll see if I can link that video here, that those driver requests, those planning rides ahead of time do not work. But let's see what this one says. The night before, at pickup time, there wasn't a Lyft or Uber within 20 miles. When I did get one, the drivers said that at the rate they were being paid, it wasn't worth getting out of bed early anymore. That is the most ridiculous scam, that whole idea of scheduling a ride with Uber. Now it gets to the fun part. But what about driverless cars? Let's put aside that some enthusiasts, like Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak, now believes that fully autonomous cars are not going to happen. The Woz doesn't think it's going to happen. Good. Join the crowd. Fully autonomous cars would mean Uber would have to own the cars. I've been saying this for years. A year and a half. Uber's not going to buy the cars. The capital cost would be staggering and would burst the illusion that Uber is a technology company rather than a taxi company that buys and operates someone else's robot cars. Now, this next statement is interesting too because it goes to how they're perceived. Uber has succeeded in getting the business press to treat its popularity as the same as commercial success. There's every reason to think that investors, not local cab companies, will end up being Uber's biggest roadkill. Oh, I love the way that ends. There's every reason to think that investors, not local cab companies, will wind up being Uber's biggest roadkill. What do you think? Does Uber have a future? Leave your comments down below. As always, I love it when you comment, when you like and share the videos, especially when you subscribe. I don't know if this is good news or bad, but it's certainly interesting. Thanks for watching. I'm Mark with Uber Ends.